What if I told you that the world you're living in right now is nothing more than a shadow of what it could have been? That revolutionary technologies capable of transforming human civilization have been systematically erased from existence, not because they didn't work, but because they worked too well? The inventions I'm about to reveal to you weren't abandoned due to scientific limitations or engineering failures. They were deliberately destroyed, suppressed, and buried because they threatened the very foundation of industries worth trillions of dollars. Today, we're diving deep into the forbidden archives of human innovation to uncover 10 impossible inventions that were deleted from history. These aren't conspiracy theories or wild speculation. These are documented technologies created by brilliant minds, witnessed by credible observers, and then mysteriously vanished from public knowledge. By the end of this video, you'll understand why progress isn't limited by what's scientifically possible, but by what's economically permissible. But before we begin this journey into suppressed science, let me give you a preview of what we're dealing with here. We're talking about devices that could generate unlimited free energy from thin air. Machines that could cure terminal diseases with 100% success rates. Technologies that could make objects levitate and defy gravity itself. These weren't theoretical concepts or laboratory curiosities. They were working prototypes that demonstrated capabilities that would make our current technology look primitive by comparison. What makes these stories particularly disturbing is the consistent pattern of suppression that follows each breakthrough. Brilliant inventors create revolutionary devices, demonstrate their effectiveness to military officials and scientists, then watch as government agents confiscate their equipment, classify their research, and destroy decades of work. Many of these inventors died under mysterious circumstances, or spent their final years fighting legal battles designed to bankrupt and silence them. The first impossible invention that vanished from history involves a name you might recognize, but a discovery that's been completely erased from mainstream science textbooks. In 1899, Nikola Tesla achieved something that would have changed the entire trajectory of human civilization. He developed a wireless power transmission system that could provide unlimited electricity to anyone, anywhere on Earth, without wires, without fuel, and without the massive infrastructure that makes energy companies billions of dollars every year. Tesla's revolutionary system worked by tapping into what he called radiant energy, a form of electromagnetic radiation that exists everywhere in space and can be converted into usable electricity. His Wardenclyffe Tower project on Long Island successfully demonstrated this technology in ways that left witnesses absolutely stunned. Picture this: entire neighborhoods powered by nothing more than specialized receivers that collected energy directly from the atmosphere. Light bulbs glowing without any connection to power lines. Electric motors running continuously without any fuel source. Heating systems operating indefinitely without consuming any energy whatsoever. The demonstrations were so successful that Tesla's financial backer, J.P. Morgan, immediately understood the implications. When Morgan realized that Tesla's free energy system would destroy the profit model of the electrical power industry, he reportedly asked Tesla a question that would seal the fate of unlimited free energy. If anyone can draw on the power, where do we put the meter? Within 2 years of this realization, funding was completely withdrawn. The Wardenclyffe Tower was demolished, and all evidence of Tesla's breakthrough was systematically destroyed. But Tesla's suppressed free energy system was just the beginning of technologies that were deemed too dangerous for public knowledge. Our second impossible invention takes us into the medical field, where a device existed that could have eliminated one of humanity's greatest killers decades before modern medicine even understood what they were fighting. In the 1930s, Dr. Royal Raymond Rife invented a microscope so powerful It could observe living viruses and bacteria in real time, achieving magnifications of over 60,000 times using revolutionary optical systems. But Rife's microscope wasn't just for observation. Using this incredible technology, he identified the specific electromagnetic signatures of disease-causing pathogens and developed frequency generators that could destroy these organisms selectively. Like an opera singer shattering a wine glass with the perfect note, Rife's frequency therapy worked by bombarding diseased cells with precise electromagnetic pulses that matched their natural resonant frequency. The results were nothing short of miraculous. In clinical trials conducted at the University of Southern California in 1934, 16 terminal cancer patients were treated with Rife's frequency therapy. Within 70 days, 14 were completely cured. The remaining 2 patients recovered fully after their treatment protocols were adjusted, achieving a 100% cure rate for terminal cancer. Dr. Milbank Johnson, who directed these groundbreaking clinical trials, prepared to announce this revolutionary cancer cure to the medical world. But before the results could be published, Johnson died suddenly under mysterious circumstances, and all documentation of the cancer cure trials vanished from university records. The American Medical Association immediately launched a campaign to discredit Rife's work. Medical journals refused to publish papers on frequency therapy. Researchers who supported Rife lost their funding, and doctors who used his machines were threatened with the loss of their medical licenses. The systematic destruction of Rife's work wasn't just scientific persecution. It was economic warfare. By the 1940s, cancer treatment had become a billion-dollar industry, generating enormous profits for pharmaceutical companies, hospitals, and medical equipment manufacturers. Rife's simple, inexpensive cure threatened to eliminate the entire cancer treatment industry overnight. In 1939, agents working for pharmaceutical interests broke into Rife's laboratory and destroyed his research materials, including irreplaceable components of his universal microscope. Several researchers who attempted to replicate Rife's work died under suspicious circumstances. The technology that could have saved millions of lives was erased to protect the profits of an industry that benefits more from treating disease than curing it. Our third impossible invention ventures into the realm of physics itself, challenging our fundamental understanding of gravity and opening possibilities that would revolutionize transportation and space exploration forever. In 1928, physicist Thomas Townsend Brown discovered that electrically charged objects experience a force that appears to defy gravity, leading to the development of anti-gravity technology that could transform how humans move through the world. Brown's breakthrough came from a simple but profound observation. Capacitors, devices that store electrical charge, experience a net force when charged with high voltage. The capacitors would move toward their positive electrode, creating thrust without any propellant, without any moving parts, without violating any laws of physics that we understood at the time. This phenomenon, known as the Biefeld-Brown effect, suggested that electricity and gravity were connected in ways that contradicted Einstein's general relativity. In 1952, Brown demonstrated his anti-gravity technology to military officials using disc-shaped capacitors that could fly around a circular course under their own power. These devices achieved speeds of several hundred miles per hour using only electrical energy, with no jets, no propellers, no reaction mass of any kind. The implications were staggering. Brown's electrogravitics could enable spacecraft that didn't require fuel, aircraft that could hover indefinitely using only battery power, and transportation systems that operated silently without environmental impact. Classified military research into electrogravitics began immediately, with projects receiving substantial funding from the Air Force and Navy. Brown was recruited to develop military applications of anti-gravity technology, including disc-shaped aircraft that could outperform any conventional fighter plane. By 1955, Brown had developed electrogravitics devices that could lift their own power supplies and achieve sustained flight. But then, in 1956, everything changed. The research was suddenly classified under national security orders that made public discussion of electrogravitics illegal. Brown's patents were seized, his research facilities were closed, and all documentation of anti-gravity technology was removed from public access. The official explanation claimed that Brown's research had failed to produce practical results, but independent investigators discovered that major aerospace companies had secretly incorporated electrogravitics research into advanced aircraft programs. Aviation Week magazine reported in 1956 that several aircraft manufacturers were developing revolutionary propulsion systems for next-generation military aircraft, systems that bore striking similarities to Brown's suppressed technology. Brown died in 1985, still prohibited from discussing his breakthrough discovery that electricity could overcome gravity. His anti-gravity technology remains locked away in classified government laboratories, where it may have contributed to advanced aircraft programs that officially don't exist. Moving from the suppression of anti-gravity technology, our fourth impossible invention takes us into an even stranger realm of physics, where sound itself becomes a source of unlimited power. In 1872, inventor John Worrell Keely developed a motor that ran on what he called sympathetic vibration, extracting limitless energy from sound waves and molecular resonance in ways that challenged everything scientists thought they knew about energy conservation. Keely's motor worked by harnessing what he termed etheric force, claiming that vibrational energy existed within all matter and could be tapped through specific acoustic frequencies. By creating precise sound patterns, his device could convert molecular motion into mechanical work, essentially creating what appeared to be a perpetual motion machine that violated fundamental laws of thermodynamics. Public demonstrations in Philadelphia left scientists and investors absolutely speechless. Keely's motor lifted enormous weights, powered industrial equipment, and ran continuously for hours using nothing more than sound waves generated by tuning forks and acoustic devices. The motor seemed to extract infinite energy from the air itself, requiring no fuel, no electricity, no external power source whatsoever. Scientists who witnessed these demonstrations confirmed that Keely's machine produced far more energy than any known power source could provide. The device generated thousands of horsepower, using only vibrations that Keely created with simple musical instruments and acoustic resonators. The Keely Motor Company was formed in 1874, with funding from wealthy investors who recognized the revolutionary implications of unlimited free energy. But as development progressed, those same investors realized that Keely's technology would make existing industrial infrastructure completely obsolete, destroying fortunes built on coal, steam, and mechanical power. Systematic sabotage began in 1881, when investors demanded that Keely reveal the complete secrets of his vibrational energy source. When Keely refused to disclose the principles behind his motor, funding was withdrawn and legal action was taken to seize his equipment and research materials. After Keely's death in 1898, investigators claimed to find evidence of fraud, including hidden compressed air systems that allegedly powered his demonstrations. However, these debunking efforts were funded by the same investors who had withdrawn support from his research and had clear financial interests in suppressing the technology. Independent analysis suggests that Keely's vibrational motors operated on principles of acoustic resonance and molecular harmonic frequency that wouldn't be understood by mainstream science until quantum mechanics was developed decades later. Modern researchers have successfully replicated aspects of Keely's vibrational energy systems, achieving limited success with acoustic motors that generate more power than their input energy should theoretically allow. Our fifth impossible invention brings us to the work of a Canadian inventor whose accidental discovery created effects so bizarre that they seemed to violate the fundamental laws of reality itself. In 1979, John Hutchison stumbled upon something extraordinary while experimenting with multiple electromagnetic generators in his Vancouver laboratory. The Hutchison effect occurred when Tesla coils, Van de Graaff generators, and radio frequency signal generators were operated simultaneously, creating intersecting electromagnetic fields that produced phenomena that mainstream science insists are completely impossible. Video documentation shows aluminum bars bending like rubber, pieces of metal lifting off tables and floating in midair, and dissimilar materials fusing together at the molecular level without any heat or pressure. Objects placed within these electromagnetic field zones exhibited behavior that violated conservation of energy, mass, and momentum. Steel bars would partially transform into aluminum. Wood would fuse with metal, and objects would spontaneously change their molecular composition in ways that seemed to defy the fundamental laws of chemistry and nuclear physics. Military officials from both the United States and Canadian governments observed Hutchison's demonstrations and confirmed that the effects were genuine. Colonel John Alexander from the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command witnessed materials levitating and transmuting, reporting that these phenomena couldn't be explained by any known scientific principles. The most remarkable aspect of the Hutchison effect was its ability to alter matter at the atomic level through nothing more than electromagnetic field interactions. This suggested that the fundamental structure of reality could be manipulated using technologies that were theoretically possible, but practically revolutionary beyond imagination. In 1990, Hutchison's laboratory equipment was confiscated by Canadian authorities acting on behalf of international military interests. His electromagnetic generators, documentation, and experimental materials were seized and classified under national security orders that prohibited him from discussing or replicating his work. Attempts to reproduce the Hutchison effect by government laboratories have reportedly been successful, but remain classified. Internal documents suggest that military researchers have incorporated Hutchison's discoveries into advanced weapons programs that can manipulate matter and gravity using electromagnetic field interactions. Our sixth impossible invention takes us into the controversial world of biological energy and weather control, where a brilliant psychiatrist developed devices that could harness what he believed was a universal life force. In the 1940s, Wilhelm Reich created what he called orgone accumulators, box-like structures that could supposedly concentrate atmospheric energy for healing and environmental manipulation. Reich's orgone accumulators consisted of alternating layers of organic and metallic materials arranged in specific geometric patterns. Medical testing showed that patients treated in these devices experienced significant improvements in conditions including cancer, arthritis, and chronic fatigue. Temperature measurements confirmed that the devices generated measurable heat without any power source, suggesting they were actually concentrating some form of environmental energy. Reich's weather modification experiments used large-scale devices called cloudbusters that could disperse clouds, create rainfall, and control atmospheric conditions by manipulating what he claimed were orgone energy flows in the atmosphere. Documented demonstrations showed successful weather control over large geographical areas using only mechanical manipulation devices. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration began investigating Reich's work in 1947, claiming that orgone energy didn't exist and that his medical claims were fraudulent. Despite extensive documentation and witness testimony supporting Reich's discoveries, federal authorities obtained court injunctions prohibiting the distribution of organ devices. In 1956, federal agents raided Reich's laboratory and destroyed his research materials in a systematic campaign that eliminated decades of work. The destruction was so thorough that agents burned Reich's scientific journals and personal correspondence, erasing virtually all traces of organ energy research. Reich was imprisoned in 1957 on charges of contempt of court for continuing his research in violation of federal injunctions. He died in federal prison 8 months later, under circumstances that his supporters considered highly suspicious, effectively ending all legitimate research into organ energy phenomena. These 6 impossible inventions represent just the beginning of technologies that have been systematically erased from human knowledge. Each breakthrough promised to revolutionize our understanding of energy, matter, and the fundamental forces that govern reality itself. Yet each was destroyed not because it failed to work, but because it succeeded too well, threatening established industries and power structures that benefit from artificial scarcity and technological limitation. Moving deeper into our exploration of suppressed technologies, our 7th impossible invention takes us to the mysterious coral structures of Florida, where one man achieved what modern engineering still cannot explain. Between 1923 and 1951, Edward Leeds Kalnin single-handedly constructed what became known as Coral Castle, using massive coral blocks weighing up to 30 tons each. Working entirely alone during the night hours with nothing more than primitive hand tools, Leeds Kalnin demonstrated construction methods that appear to have defied the laws of physics. What makes Leeds Kalnin's achievement truly extraordinary isn't just the scale of his construction, but the precision and impossibility of his methods. Witnesses who occasionally observed him working reported seeing massive coral blocks floating through the air and positioning themselves exactly where Leeds Kalnin directed them. These weren't small stones that could be moved with clever leverage. We're talking about blocks weighing tens of thousands of pounds that moved as if they were weightless. Leeds Kalnin claimed to understand the secrets of pyramid construction and frequently spoke about discovering how ancient civilizations moved enormous stone blocks using magnetic forces rather than brute mechanical strength. His workshop contained unusual electrical equipment, including homemade generators, electromagnetic coils, and devices that he claimed could manipulate magnetic currents in ways that mainstream science had never explored. The engineering calculations for moving 30-ton blocks using conventional methods would require heavy machinery that Leeds Kalnin simply didn't possess. His primitive tools, basic pulleys, chains, and hand-built tripods couldn't generate anywhere near the forces needed to lift and position stones with the precision demonstrated at Coral Castle. Yet somehow, working completely alone, he accomplished what would challenge entire teams of modern construction workers equipped with massive cranes. Analysis of the coral blocks reveals cutting marks and shaping techniques that couldn't have been achieved with the hand tools Leeds Kalnin officially used. The precision of the stone cutting and the complexity of the mechanical joints suggest access to advanced technologies that he never publicly acknowledged. Some stones are balanced so precisely on single points that they can be moved by gentle hand pressure despite weighing multiple tons, indicating an understanding of physics and engineering that approaches absolute perfection. After Leeds Kalnin's death in 1951, government investigators immediately sealed his workshop and confiscated all of his equipment and research notes. The devices he used for stone construction were removed and classified, and all documentation of his magnetic manipulation methods was eliminated from public access. The systematic removal of his construction equipment suggests that his technology demonstrated principles too advanced to remain in civilian hands. Our 8th impossible invention brings us to Britain in the 1960s, where an electrical engineer developed a device that combined two revolutionary capabilities into a single impossible machine. John Searle created what he called the Searle Effect Generator, or SEG, a magnetic device that not only produced unlimited free energy, but also demonstrated anti-gravity effects that allowed it to lift off the ground and fly through the air under its own power. The SAG consisted of magnetic rollers that orbited around magnetized rings in specific geometric patterns. As these rollers moved around the rings, they generated electrical current through magnetic induction, while simultaneously creating anti-gravity effects that reduced the device's apparent weight to zero. Demonstrations showed SEG devices producing kilowatts of electrical power without any input energy source, while levitating and flying through the air like some kind of technological magic. Witnesses described seeing Searle's generators floating above their mounting platforms while simultaneously powering electrical loads that should have required substantial input power. The devices generated electricity continuously without fuel, without mechanical input, without any apparent energy source other than the magnetic interactions of their rotating components. The SEG technology offered the tantalizing possibility of spacecraft that could power themselves indefinitely while providing their own lift and propulsion. The implications for space travel and energy generation were revolutionary. If Searle's technology worked as demonstrated, it would eliminate humanity's dependence on fossil fuels while opening up possibilities for interplanetary travel that conventional rocket technology could never achieve. The combination of unlimited power generation and anti-gravity propulsion in a single device represented a breakthrough that would fundamentally transform human civilization. In 1968, British authorities raided Searle's laboratory and confiscated his equipment, claiming that his generators were creating electrical interference with aircraft navigation systems. All SEG devices were destroyed, and Searle was prohibited from continuing his research under threat of imprisonment for violating electronic emissions regulations. He spent several years in prison on charges related to electrical code violations, during which time all of his research materials were confiscated and destroyed. Our ninth impossible invention takes us to Austria and the work of Victor Schauberger, an inventor whose understanding of natural forces led him to develop engines that generated power through implosion rather than explosion. In the 1940s, Schauberger created revolutionary propulsion systems that produced tremendous energy while actually cooling themselves and purifying the air and water around them. Schauberger's implosion engines worked by creating spiral vortex patterns in air and water that concentrated energy inward rather than dispersing it outward like conventional combustion engines. This vortex implosion process generated substantial horsepower while consuming minimal fuel and producing no harmful emissions whatsoever. The engines operated almost silently and became more efficient the longer they ran, apparently extracting additional energy from the vortex manipulation process itself. German military forces took significant interest in Schauberger's technology during World War II, commissioning him to develop implosion engines for advanced aircraft applications. His work contributed to disc-shaped aircraft prototypes that achieved flight characteristics impossible with conventional propulsion systems, demonstrating capabilities that seemed to defy aerodynamic principles. After the war ended, American intelligence forces captured Schauberger and seized all of his research materials, including prototypes, blueprints, and complete documentation of implosion engine principles. He was interrogated extensively about his vortex technology before being released with strict warnings never to continue his research. The environmental benefits of Schauberger's implosion technology were as revolutionary as its energy applications, producing purified air and water as exhaust products while actually improving environmental conditions. In 1958, American businessmen convinced Schauberger to come to the United States to develop his implosion technology for commercial applications. However, after arriving, he was forced to sign contracts that gave complete control of his inventions to American corporations, while prohibiting him from continuing independent research. Schauberger died shortly after returning to Austria, reportedly broken by the suppression of his life's work. Our 10th and final impossible invention brings us to one of the most controversial experiments in military history, an attempt to achieve invisibility that accidentally stumbled upon something far more extraordinary. In 1943, the U.S. Navy conducted a classified experiment using the destroyer USS Eldridge that demonstrated matter transmission and invisibility technology, with consequences that were immediately buried under layers of classification. The Philadelphia experiment was based on Einstein's unified field theory, which suggested that electromagnetic and gravitational fields could be manipulated to alter space-time around physical objects. By generating powerful electromagnetic fields around the ship, researchers hoped to achieve radar invisibility, but instead achieved something that challenged our understanding of physical reality itself. On October 28, 1943, massive electromagnetic generators created a field around USS Eldridge that caused the entire ship to vanish completely from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Witnesses reported seeing the ship disappear in a flash of blue-green light, leaving only an indentation in the water where it had been moored. The ship reappeared minutes later at Norfolk Naval Station in Virginia, over 200 miles away, having apparently traveled instantaneously through what could only be described as teleportation. The crew of USS Eldridge experienced severe psychological and physical effects from the teleportation process. Some sailors were found fused partially into the ship's metal structure, others became invisible and couldn't control the effect. Many suffered from temporal displacement that left them existing partially outside normal time flow, experiencing reality in ways that drove some to complete madness. The Navy immediately classified all records of the Philadelphia experiment and denied that any such research had occurred. Witnesses were transferred to different assignments, sworn to absolute secrecy, and threatened with court-martial if they discussed what they had observed. The teleportation technology demonstrated that physical matter could be transmitted instantaneously across vast distances using electromagnetic field manipulation, offering capabilities that would fundamentally transform human civilization while making conventional transportation systems completely obsolete. The systematic suppression of teleportation technology appears motivated by its implications for military and economic control. If matter transmission became available to civilian populations, it would eliminate transportation industries worth trillions of dollars while making military bases vulnerable to instant attack and fundamentally altering the structure of global commerce and political power. These 10 impossible inventions reveal a disturbing pattern that extends far beyond individual cases of suppressed technology. They represent systematic evidence of deliberate technological limitation designed to protect existing power structures by eliminating innovations that would fundamentally transform human civilization. From Tesla's free energy systems to teleportation technology, each breakthrough was eliminated not because of scientific impossibility, but because of economic and political threats to industries built on artificial scarcity and controlled distribution. The consistent pattern of suppression across decades and continents tells a story that mainstream history refuses to acknowledge. Brilliant inventors create revolutionary technologies, demonstrate their effectiveness to credible witnesses, then face systematic persecution through patent seizure, equipment confiscation, legal harassment, and often mysterious deaths that end their research permanently. The implications of these suppressed technologies extend far beyond what most people are willing to consider. We're not just talking about lost opportunities for scientific advancement. We're looking at evidence that human progress has been artificially constrained by forces that profit from limitation rather than liberation. The world we inhabit today isn't the world we could have inherited. It's the world that certain powers have decided we're allowed to experience. Think about the magnitude of what's been hidden from us. Free energy that could have eliminated poverty by making electricity accessible to every human being on Earth. Cancer cures that could have saved millions of lives and prevented untold suffering. Anti-gravity technology that could have given us the stars decades ago. Weather control systems that could have ended droughts and prevented natural disasters. Matter manipulation that could have solved resource scarcity forever. Each of these technologies was suppressed at the moment when it threatened existing profit structures. The pattern is so consistent it's impossible to ignore. Innovation isn't limited by scientific possibility. It's limited by economic permission. Revolutionary breakthroughs exist in classified vaults, while humanity continues struggling with problems that were solved generations ago by inventors whose work was deemed too dangerous for public knowledge. Consider the broader implications of this systematic suppression. How many other breakthrough technologies have been buried before we ever heard about them? How many brilliant minds have been silenced before their discoveries could see daylight? The inventors we've discussed today were the ones whose work became public enough to leave traces in historical records. But for every Tesla or Rife whose story survived, how many others were eliminated before their names ever appeared in patents or scientific journals? The suppression apparatus operates with remarkable efficiency. Patent offices classify revolutionary energy devices under national security orders before inventors can develop them commercially. Research facilities are raided by federal agents who confiscate equipment and documentation under the authority of laws that most citizens don't even know exist. Scientists who achieve breakthroughs that threaten established industries find their funding mysteriously withdrawn and their careers systematically destroyed. What's particularly chilling is how the suppression extends beyond technology into the realm of human potential itself. These inventions weren't just machines or devices. They represented expanded possibilities for human consciousness and capability. Tesla's wireless power transmission suggested that energy exists everywhere in forms we barely understand. Reich's orgone accumulators indicated that biological systems interact with environmental forces in ways that conventional medicine ignores. The Hutchison effect demonstrated that consciousness might directly influence physical matter through electromagnetic fields. The suppression of these technologies reveals something profound about the nature of reality and human potential. We're not just talking about hidden machines. We're talking about suppressed knowledge of how the universe actually works at fundamental levels. The inventors whose work was destroyed weren't just building devices. They were discovering principles that could transform human understanding of energy, matter, consciousness, and the interconnected nature of all existence. Modern physics acknowledges that 96% of the universe consists of dark matter and dark energy that we can't detect or understand using conventional methods. Yet when inventors like Tesla claimed to tap into environmental energy sources, their work was systematically destroyed rather than investigated. When researchers like Rife demonstrated that electromagnetic frequencies could selectively destroy pathogens, their discoveries were buried rather than developed. When experimenters like Hutchison showed that matter could be manipulated through field interactions, their equipment was confiscated rather than studied. The suppression extends into educational institutions, where entire branches of scientific inquiry have been eliminated from mainstream curriculum. Students learn that free energy is impossible because it violates thermodynamics, but they're never taught about zero-point energy extraction or environmental electromagnetic harvesting. Medical students learn that cancer requires chemotherapy and radiation, but they're never exposed to frequency therapy or biofield manipulation techniques. This systematic limitation of human knowledge serves specific interests. Industries built on scarcity require artificial limitation to maintain their profit margins. Energy companies need people to believe that power must be generated and distributed through expensive infrastructure. Pharmaceutical corporations need people to accept that diseases require costly treatments rather than simple cures. Military organizations need people to assume that advanced propulsion and communication technologies don't exist outside official channels. The suppressed inventions we've examined today prove that breakthrough technologies aren't limited by scientific impossibility. They're limited by economic and political considerations that most people never consider. The technologies that could eliminate energy scarcity, cure diseases, enable space travel, and fundamentally transform human civilization exist in classified facilities where they benefit only those with access to restricted knowledge. But perhaps most importantly, these suppressed inventions reveal that individual human beings possess far greater creative and innovative potential than mainstream society acknowledges. Every revolutionary technology we've discussed was created by individuals working with limited resources and conventional materials. Tesla developed wireless power transmission using equipment he built in his own laboratory. Rife created his universal microscope and frequency generators through personal experimentation and observation. Brown discovered anti-gravity effects through simple electrical experiments that anyone could theoretically replicate. These 10 impossible inventions represent more than lost opportunities for technological advancement. They reveal a systematic pattern of deliberate suppression designed to maintain artificial scarcity and protect existing power structures. The world we inhabit isn't the world we could have inherited. It's the world that certain interests have decided we're allowed to experience. The technologies that could have eliminated poverty, cured diseases, and given us the stars decades ago exist in classified vaults, hidden from humanity while we continue struggling with problems that were solved generations ago. The question isn't whether these breakthrough technologies are scientifically possible. The question is when we'll finally demand access to the innovations that could transform human civilization forever.